Holy cow! Welcome to another broadcast of Bricks Behind the Ivy.
Hey, Cub fam! Welcome to another episode of Bricks Behind the Ivy. I am always your host, Jeff Candid Cubs Vergauskas, and joining me today is another special guest host from Locked On Cubs, Mr. Matt Cozzi. Welcome to Bricks Behind the Ivy, Matt.
Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
Living the dream, man, every day. I think
that
generally I'm smiling on this podcast, but inside I feel dead every time I feel like we're getting more news about how the Cubs plan using their financial space this offseason to address the number of issues they have on their roster. But yeah, how about you? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I feel pretty good right now. I feel like maybe we're on a little bit of borrowed time. We're just dealing with a lot of rumor or really a lot of inactivity. And I think once the first shoe drops, which I guess you can make a case that happened last week with the roster moves they did make, and they made the one or two trades, especially for Eli Morgan. But I don't really feel like we have that move to really like kick off, okay, this is the direction they're going. I don't think it's that far away. I really think things could heat up really any moment, especially after Kikuchi signed with the Angels the other day. It sounds like in the next 7 to 10 days, Soto will sign. So
since this has recorded,
Juan Soto to the Mets. It's real.
We'll see. It seems like the ball is moving down the field towards the Cubs investing a lot in pitching and either holding the line or moving people to clear room for younger players on the offensive side. So, yeah, it's kind of like hurry up and wait. But I do think the offseason will be at a better pace this year than last winter.
Yeah, I certainly don't think it'll move slower. And yeah, right now the offseason kind of feels like a Shane Waldron offense. A lot of third and long. And we're just sitting here. And
2024 Chicago sports fandom captured in one play.
So here you go. He's gotten hit throughout the rest of the game, and it's hurting more now. Comes down to one last play. And it's going to be getting longer by the second. You're all the way back at the 30-yard line. Now you can step into it. Here comes the Hail Mary with the game on the line. And the ball is caught! Caught! It's a miracle! It's Noah Brown! Oh, my goodness! This town is going crazy! It's a madhouse in Landover, Maryland! He did it! Oh, this one will be paid back over and over again for decades. The ball tipped by Stevenson. Noah Brown just standing back there all alone. Plucks it out of the air for the victory.
I know this sounds crazy, but there's a method to the madness here. Everyone uses.
Yeah. I would be more concerned though, like in 2 weeks. If it was like this in 2 weeks, that's when it would be. It would be more of like, all right, let's go.
Yeah, I have my daily deal with, or yearly deal with the Ricketts family of sign someone I'm interested in and I'll go to Winter Wonderland. Otherwise, I'll sit it out.
Okay. What's your Cubs convention attendance been like over the years? Because Sam and I are thinking about going.
Yeah, this is actually Bricks Behind the Ivy is going to go this year.
Okay.
I've never gone.
I've never gone.
Yeah, I've never gone either. Like, are we losing notoriety, audience, right now? Leave comments
right
on YouTube on whether or not. But yeah, I've never made the trek, cost and such. And I have 2 little kids who care very little about baseball. Working on it still, but so that would be a weekend away from the wife, and there's trades. Right. Much like a major league club, I have to trade time for time, and that wasn't the time that I would trade. Something that I think Bricks Behind the Ivy will be entertaining, and so yeah, we'll have to meet in person, and you can find out.
Yeah, please.
Deliriously short I am, and how much weight the camera actually takes off.
Okay. All right.
But Bricks Behind the Ivy tradition, we like to ask our guests, their Cubs or baseball origin story, just to get an idea of, where you fell in love with the game, how you fell in love with the Cubs, and how you ended up getting where you are at Locked On Cubs. So feel free to share.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I was born into a Cubs family, a really strong Cubs ties, and then simultaneously, I was also just a general baseball fan and then played baseball growing up. Like that was my number one sport. I played throughout high school. And yeah, just really developed a love of the game. And then like even in my post-journalism days now as in the education field, I coached baseball for 6 years. This past spring was my first spring not coaching in 6 years.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, I'm very connected to baseball. And I feel like as I get older, it's really the only thing I follow. I would follow other sports or other teams, and that has decreased exponentially. So I really feel like, for better or worse, I'm down to the Cubs. I'm down to baseball. But I think doubling down on it has actually increased my fandom in that, while it's decreased a lot in the other areas. And yeah, very strong Cubs family on the Cozzi side. We've had 5 Cozzi weddings in the last 2 years, and each one of them, there's been a major Cubs references. Like at my wedding last New Year's, we sang "Go Cubs Go." We sang "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." So yeah, it's just very deep roots, a very emotional connection, and yeah, just I love this team.
It's funny, Mrs. Candid Cubs, when I first met her when I was in college, they were playing Don't Stop Believing at one of my fraternity formals, and she jumped up on a chair and started singing Go Cubs Go.
Okay.
She was my blind date that evening, and I knew in that moment that I wanted to marry her. We didn't start dating for
That's amazing, yeah.
2 years later, but that was it. That was it for me. So
right.
I get that those strong ties, and my engagement photos are in Cub jerseys, and it's
wow.
It's my son is named after Kyle Hendricks. He's a World Series baby, so it's I get those strong ties, and I'm sure,
yes,
WGN in your house and all the standards. Yeah, it is interesting to me, in a podcast or a subject I want to cover is, how does the next generation find this team without WGN? That's something I feel
it's a good question.
Long term, people need to actually be concerned about, because all of us were so used to it just always being on, and now unless you're paying $30 a month or have cable with Marquee and you're in a specific area, you're not getting the Cubs like you used to. It's a different world.
Yeah, I'd have to think a strong origin point is still family oriented, and then the next tier would be friends, but just connecting with the team organically, yeah, I think that's few and far between, because we see the numbers. Baseball still is skewing on the older demographic. So, maybe it is podcast or, highlights or the condensed games on the MLB app. That's just a great question.
Yeah, and I think it inspires me to try to keep doing this, because I feel like a lot of folks that I talk to that are younger than me, as I make myself sound old, they're in the podcast, and they are attached to the John Boy type interaction. Not necessarily some of the other platforms are out there, and just being constantly engaged in the game, because this isn't football, this isn't fantasy football, it's not set it forget it. This is a full-time job, being a baseball fan, and
6-7 days a week.
Yeah, buried at. But then there's always something on. So there you go.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. That's funny.
There's just turning on computer versus computer on MLB The Show and holding yourself until spring.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
But that's it sounds like you're a teacher and a baseball coach. And what position did you play when you were in high school?
Outfield.
Okay. So
outfield.
Right?
Yeah. I was part of a lot of good teams growing up, and even as a coach with some really good programs, high school and travel. So yeah, I just feel very fortunate to be around a lot of high level baseball. Actually, two of my high school teammates, one of them is still one of my best friends. reached the major leagues, believe it or not.
Oh, wow. Okay.
From our high school team. One was a grade ahead of me. One was a grade behind me. One of them actually played for the Cubs, Nick Martini. I don't know if you remember him, Jeff.
Yeah, I do. Yes.
He played for the Reds the last couple of years. So, it's pretty cool.
That is, that's pretty awesome. Anyone else you want to name drop in your time that you've been the?
Well, yeah, my best friend Kevin Kazmarski, he was up about 5 weeks for the Mets.
Okay.
So,
cool.
They were on this. They were teammates at the same. We were on the same high school team.
Okay. Cool.
So pretty crazy. So my junior year, we had 26 players on the team, and 13 of them either started or finished at a Division I school.
Oh, wow.
4 made it to professional baseball. 2 made the major leagues.
Jeez.
And we won state that year, which after that resume, it might not even be that surprising. So
that's a stacked team right there.
It was really cool. Yeah.
So it sounds like I can start Bricks Behind the Ivy guest softball team. Like you can play the outfield.
Yeah, absolutely. I played a few years. Yeah.
And we'll get Cole Wright to come out and pitch again.
Right.
We're almost there. We only have 6 more guys.
No, that'd be fun.
But yeah,
or even if it was like a one-time thing, that'd be fun.
There you go. I would love it. Like we could raise some money for a good cause and some laughs. I'm down. Get Joe Obvious to make us some jerseys.
That's great. Let's start whiteboarding it.
There you go. Put it in the comments if you're going to want to watch. Come to see something like that. Raise money for.
Yeah. Oh, I think there'd be a small turnout.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe we can get the other Cub podcasts.
Get all the other shows. Yeah,
like a friendly rivalry game.
All 22 of them. There's so many shows.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm glad I ended up getting that patent when I started my show.
Yeah. There you go.
But let's transition to what we're going to talk about. And as we're recording, it's late at night, so I think this is a excellent and sloppy transition to name dropping our first sponsor, Yaggy Road Roasting Company. Yaggy Road Roasting was started by 3 college friends at Valparaiso University, Go Beacons, and they specialize in a boutique coffee roasting centered on ethically sourcing and meticulously roasting some of the most special coffees in the world. A lot of life's most special moments happen over coffee, which is why Yaggy Road ensures that the coffee in your mug is as special as the moment you are experiencing. Check out the link in the bio to order yours today. So, today I thought we would talk about the Cubs' budget and the CBT threshold, and kind of just amass the conversation, the rumors, discussion about how they've addressed the CBT, how the ownership group has allowed the CBT to be used in the past, and just general thoughts on the direction of the team giving these potential financial limitations. I think there's a lot of noise at this moment. Nothing until something happens. Jed can be notoriously silent, but maybe that's wishful thinking on my part. But, there's been a lot of conversation about moving Billy's contract. There's been a lot of conversation about how they're not in on the top tier of pitching. There even has been a little bit of, feels like a step back of them being in the middle tier of pitching. And there has been very little conversation around, trades as of yet, but that stuff especially seems to trickle in by force once we get to the winter meetings here in about a week. Mm-hmm. So, just give me your overall thoughts at this moment in time of, how you feel the Cubs operate on a budget perspective and how you think that's going to affect this offseason.
Yeah, well, my general thoughts first are they're definitely payroll conscious. There's definitely a ceiling to what they can do with dollars. We still don't know really why that is, because as far as we know on the record, they're bringing in a lot of money. They're bringing in money not even in just baseball. I mean, there's football games at Wrigley. There's a concert every other weekend in the summer. Not all, but some of that is in theory what Tom Ricketts wants to do with it. And so, it is odd that we have to do so much reading of tea leaves, and it has to be like a treasure hunt or like some kind of game that we have to figure out. There's no game to figure out with the Dodgers, the Yankees, the Red Sox now have made it clear like they're coming back, ready to commit dollars to people. The Mets. I always consider like the crown jewels of baseball, the Yankees, Dodgers, Cubs, and Red Sox.
Agreed.
And I just like with that foursome, there should be like never any like treasure hunts. Everything should be clear. They should have a seat at the table if they want to on people. They should be really just driving the conversation in the sport. And I feel like the Cubs don't have a seat at that particular table conversation right now. I just don't. And what's frustrating is we really don't know why. I know some reporters have poked around and it hasn't really bared out a lot of fruit. But with that being said, Jed Hoyer has not been held hostage by Tom Ricketts. They have spent. It's not all on Ricketts. It's not all on Hoyer. They both have played a role in this. They were right at the threshold and actually a little bit over it last year. That's a lot of money. And to build the team that they did for that much money is not on ownership. It's just not. There's multiple people that have a role in this. And, because I thought after watching, did you watch the Red Sox documentary?
I have not yet, no.
Not yet. Well, Jed Hoyer is in it a lot. And after watching that, it's like, wow, he's been places. He grew up with Theo not only as a person, but as a baseball executive.
Yeah.
He deep down, I feel like he knows how to build a team. So then I started wrapping my head around it like, is his talent being limited to build that great team by Ricketts? I don't think so. They spent $237 million last year, 83 wins. So there's a lot of factors in this, Jeff. It's very complicated. The path is not easy to improve your team this offseason, especially if they do hold the line offensively. Again, if they make an investment in pitching, let's say they get 2 starters, 2 or 3 relievers, and a catcher, they are better.
Yeah.
But is that enough, especially considering, the offensive slides they had multiple times the last 2 years?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to think about, I don't know if hubris is the word I want to choose, but the end of season press conference when Jed and Carter seemed to insinuate strongly that they did not expect Bellinger to come back. And right. I think I'm interested. It reminds me in a weird way of last year's offseason where, and this is also just a juxtaposition as well of the 2 off seasons. Last year, at the end of the season, before we even knew David Ross was fired, there was the Crane Kenny show on every local radio station of Jed's going to have money. Jed's going to have all this money. And it was very odd. It was a very, a very different approach than I would say the Jed Hoyer era in which, it's very different than Theo. And I don't know if that's necessarily a negative. It's just Theo is a charismatic guy that is very easy to put in front of a camera because he always has something poignant to say. He could say nothing, and you still feel like you've been comforted by his wisdom, the way he phrased something. He's had the offseason of the offense broke, and they ended up not doing anything. But at that moment, I didn't feel as lousy about the season because of that proclamation where, Jed is just not that guy, and that's unfair. It's apples and oranges, Theo. People would line up to listen to that guy talk, and Jed I don't think is in that same boat. But yeah, this offseason, as we approached, it felt like they're talking about that financial situation, and last year with Shohei Ohtani, this year with Juan Soto. I feel like there is a world where they truly did want to entertain Shohei Ohtani, and Shohei Ohtani didn't really want to entertain them. And feel like that's probably the financial proclamation was existing there to signal to their agents that they were serious about that, but he just wasn't leaving the West Coast. And then there was the walk back by the national media, Bruce Miles and on Marquee, where it's like, well, like we don't have that money, and that feels specifically tied to Scott Boras. Like you don't want to like say how deep your purse is when you're dealing with him as an agent. And the Cubs definitely seem to, like starting with Chris Bryant, have struggled dealing with Scott Boras, and maybe there's an allergy in this front office to working with Scott Boras and how he deals and how he's looking for the best price, and they don't want to subject. So if maybe Juan Soto being with Scott Boras is what's eliminated him from being an option with the Cubs, just because they know that he's going to drive the price up for the sake of driving the price up, and they don't want to be that market. But it's tough though to look at this team and how they failed offensively, and like really needing left-handing slug and generational talent being out there for just money. As Theo used to teach us, like that's the easiest thing asset to give up is money instead of, organizational health and depth. So like to not have to trade anything to get something you really need, it just feels like such a missed opportunity. And I struggle with that probably just as beyond just like who the player is. It's just using one of the resources that other teams in your own division do not have. And exactly like we're taking the folding chair away from the table of that upper echelon, and like that is concerning, as a fan, and thinking about the long-term prospects of this team, because you are correct, like we are the darling of the Midwest, regardless of other baseball fans find this podcast and disagree, but like we are what make the Midwest market, and we seem to be doing our best to like tap dance line of just not being involved, and I don't think that is what we were promised, or it feels like what should be intended, and I'm not sure like as a fan how you should react.
Yeah, there's just a lot there. We know the 5 finalists for Juan Soto. The Yankees, Red Sox, and Dodgers are 3 of them. And then the Mets and Blue Jays. And one team gets them, but it's too bad. It's too bad because I do think they pitched Ohtani last year, but now they didn't pitch Soto. Well, we know they pitched Ohtani. Matty Lee from the Sun-Times has even inferred that the Cubs basically finished 3rd. But who cares?
Yeah.
In a way, right? Who cares? But to not even pitch Soto, it was, it's strange, but they went over the luxury tax last year.
Yeah.
And so to not want to pay the repeater tax, I don't know if respect is the right word, but I get it. I get that. I can't imagine they went over the threshold by accident last year. If they did, that's a massive error.
Yeah.
But, I have some understanding of, well, they don't want to go over the repeater tax. But you could just in 5 seconds say, well, Matt, this is we could just go in a circle.
Yeah,
it's a generational talent. You should go over. You should pay the penalty to get a generational player, right?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, what you're losing is international free agent money, but like what you're getting is a guy that you might never scout. Like that's
a clear Hall of Famer.
Yeah, like at 26 years old, like these are
right.
Like,
no, you're right. Exactly.
You're hoping one of the guys in our top 100 is 1/5 of what that guy is going to be. Like that's
exactly. No, that's true. That's a good way to put it.
It's tough. Like that's the part that. And then, like to go in the other of like a trade, like when people talk about like Vlad Guerrero, it's like, all right, well, then you're giving up your organizational health to acquire a guy that might not resign if we're not intending.
Right. Just 1 year.
Yeah. So like, it just, it's a frustrating circle, and I'm not going to beat that bush.
It's a little messy right now. Yeah.
I think one thing I do want to circle back on though is the luxury tax, because I think, and this is kind of or going over the tax last year. And I think this is something I've been thinking about a lot. Like, I feel like if it was a mistake for them to have gone over the luxury tax. I think Jed should have been fired.
I don't think it probably wasn't.
Yeah. And that's, but then like it does circle back to the original thought process of like, then why didn't you push further past the tax last year to like really address the bullpen? So like that's why I think even objectively it feels like it definitely was a mistake, and like there's this concern to me of like, are we like the Reinsdorfs? Are we like the McCaskies? Or we're just not going to fire a guy that's on the last year of his contract? Because like Theo didn't get fired; he got bought out. Like that's different. They were able to cap how much money he was at, but we're like, maybe Jed's not going to get bought out. He's going to have to be dragged out the door. So like that.
Yeah.
That is definitely a concern of mine. And yeah, I think I definitely, when I've been thinking just game day revenue and the ability for the Cubs and not being in the same cable situation as other teams as being enough. But
yeah, the TV part's a good point.
The extra things, and this came up in one of my recent recordings, like the concerts and all that, those are things Wrigley's never had and generate massive revenue for the team. And that's like, I don't want them to take those things away. That's not what I'm saying. It's just like the wheelbarrow of money that Crane Kenny declared like back in like 2014, 2015.
A while ago, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the wheels broke on the way to baseball operations. Like, it's just not...
Or it fell out or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like maybe there's a hole in the wheelbarrow, and like by the time it gets there, like... Like, I want to know personally, as someone who's like in, the lower middle class, like when they're moving that wheelbarrow, if there's a hole in it, because I'd like to trail it and like check, cover some
scraps. Yeah.
So let's we'll do kind of one final topic. Given like the Cubs payroll situation, depending on the source, roster resource, Sport Track, there's varying quality to all these things.
Yep.
Cubs have about 50-ish million, just under 50 million in threshold. If you were Jed Hoyer, like, is there a specific player, regardless, and we'll take Juan Soto off the table,
take him off,
that you would add to this roster that you think is going to make the biggest difference for 2025?
Well, just in free agency only, I would look at Alonso and Santander and say, what does their internal system spit out as projections for them over the next year or 2 or 3 or more? Because those are the biggest power threats, and the Cubs just haven't had a power threat recently that like of that ilk. I would almost venture to say a guy like Alonso, like his output, the Cubs haven't had a slugger like that since Sammy Sosa.
Agreed.
I don't know if that would be unfair to say or not, but that's what I would lean towards saying. And then, so I would look at those guys, but again, there's no room for them. So they would have to make other moves in order for that to happen, which they could. They could make trades, right? So I really think that those dollars in terms of via free agency, I think is that second tier of the starting pitcher. I think it's possible they get 2 of them. They get Nathan Eovaldi plus Walker Buehler. Or they get Jack Flaherty, plus Alex Cobb, or I don't know. I like the first one better. I also think it's possible they sign one and trade for one. And in the trade, someone gets Cody Bellinger, or someone gets Nico Horner, or someone gets Michael Busch or Isaac Paredes. I think those are really the main 4 trade candidates, just based on their deals and all that.
Sure.
And then the people behind them internally, if that's what they want, if that's what the Cubs want to do offensively. So I do think they're going to add 2 starters and maybe 3 relievers, which then will actually total 4 relievers because they got Eli Morgan last week.
Yeah.
So I really think they could completely, impact the pitching side with that money. They could get a veteran in Kirby Yates. They could get Hobie Milner, who was just non-tendered last Friday by the Brewers. He pitched for Council. He's a lefty. Are they in the market for like a Jeff Hoffman or a Clay Holmes? Do they explore the guys, a couple other righties or a couple righties that were non-tendered last weekend, I think, carry more risk, Finnegan and Romano.
Yeah.
Especially Romano, because he didn't really pitch last year. I didn't even realize that till I was doing homework for our show.
It's like
but I don't think
2.0.
I think that's too risky.
Yeah.
Yeah, at that price point. Like I saw you mentioned before we pressed record, Lance Brozdowski had Jordan Romano on his list for $8 million. I think that would actually, I just don't think the Cubs are in a spot to do that.
Yeah, agree.
With someone who you don't know is going to pitch, and then if he does, like, is he just not good anymore? So, yeah, I think there's some names out there that could really help you, and you might even have like a glimmer of excitement. But I just wonder about this position group.
Yeah,
I don't disagree with the idea of building the team from back to front, from loading up on pitching. We know they're good defensively. You have to score, right?
Yeah.
For 60 plus games last year, they scored 3 runs a game. What was that about?
Yeah,
they went 22-39 from April 27th to July 3rd.
And it's 2 seasons in a row.
The 17 games under.
2 seasons in a row, they were 10-18 in May. So in May,
that's the season.
Yeah, that's it. That's the whole year. Like,
and actually, you know what I've learned? You know what I've learned doing a daily podcast though now for 3 seasons. You could have the 30-game slide, but you can't have the 62-game slide.
Yeah.
The Yankees had a 30-game slide. So did the Dodgers.
The Astros last year.
But 62 games, I don't think you could overcome it.
So yeah, the Major League season is about, highs and lows, and never get too low. And I thought this roster, and maybe it's a naivety at this point, last year was constructed to never really have the lows. But, they really ran into the buzzsaw of injuries. And I know Jed had said that they had plenty of pitching depth, and that really came back and bit them immediately. There was no plan for Ben Brown or, look at
right, especially in the bullpen.
Yeah, look at Hayden Wesneski's development. They sent him down to AAA to stretch him out, the rotation depth, and immediately had to call him back up to be a bullpen arm. And just the people are like, why?
At like 3 in the morning.
Yeah, I'm like, well, I mean, he spent the entire spring training and off season being prepped to be at least a swingman, and then he turned into the high leverage 7th inning guy by like May 7th. Like, there was just
right.
That's as a person that sucks. Like, there's not.
Yeah, it's just odd.
Yeah, and like Cole Wright said on our last show, and feel free to look at it on our channel if you're watching on the channel. But he said like Hector Neris just took the ball and did what he was told, but he said it was like having like a kind of sharpened spoon. Like when you needed a steak knife, like it's not what you needed for the end of the game. Like, he had the experience, he was a vet, and he, did what he was asked because that's the type of player he is, and he's a leader. But like, it didn't work. It didn't work out for a very important stretch of the year in which they were blowing these games and like almost like the like lovable losers type of like cinematic romantic horribleness that we're all used to prior to 2015 2016. And it just it was a weird offseason. And I think I agree with you on the pitching side. I think originally going in the offseason, looking at the numbers, offense and slugging was really like at the height of my list. And then really looking at how the season went down, relievers, and then pushing down some of the guys in our depth chart on the pitching side feels like a really strong move. And even watching the playoffs, like, I feel like there is a potential like advantage for a team that can put out a guy that can throw 5-6 innings by the time the playoffs get there, like having 3 guys like that, because even the Dodgers were using an opener in the World Series, which, I mean, shows you that there's just the amount of depth that they had to be able to claw their way all the way to a championship, considering the injuries that they took on.
Totally.
But at the same time, like, yeah, the Cubs, like, if you can move Ben Brown to like your 7th or 8th option as a starter, and like in that a rotation that they've removed Kyle Hendricks, like Kyle Hendricks forever. This is a Kyle Hendricks podcast, but
right.
But he like, I understand, like you can't get, like, if you're doing what you're supposed to do, you can't gamble on him coming back on the major league roster and expecting him to be 2017, 2016 Kyle Hendricks. Like that would have been an irresponsible move. And like, if you listen to this, because I'm sure he does, like, I'm sorry, I love you, but like, it was the right move for the Cubs. And as tough as it is as a fan to watch someone like that walk out the door, but yeah, I think adding depth to that rotation and really like sliding back, and maybe not a bona fide one, but I would be completely happy with an off season of like of Jack Flaherty and Walker Buehler, like that. There's like one of those that's a flyer with some crazy upside, and a guy that figured it out. And then to me too, two guys that were in the Dodgers pitching infrastructure that might be able to share some stuff of what they're doing over there, because players talk so highly about what they do. Like, share the knowledge, guys. Like, let us know. Like, let us become something more than we are.
Yeah, if Jameson Taillon was the 5th starter, how would you feel about the rotation?
Great.
Yeah.
It's like a huge improvement from 2003.
Massive.
Estes. Yeah.
Yeah.
No one would complain about 4.5 ERA, like in 6 innings. Like, everybody would be happy.
No. Totally. Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good place to leave it. Matt, thank you so much for coming on. I'd like to give some time at the end here for you to plug your show and anything you've got exciting coming up in the Locked On Cubs space.
Yeah, so Locked On Cubs, every weekday, Sam Olber and I, we've just been having a great time over there. Yeah, I feel like we're still growing. And it's we took over that show in July of 2022. So it's definitely been a journey, and a couple things coming up, just obviously covering the team in all aspects. We do an event in December. This will be our third one, called the Locked On Cubs Holiday Party. That's a live stream on YouTube, where we invite listeners onto the show. I think that's what makes our show unique. We've had over 40 listeners on our show, basically borrowing a card from radio. We just have the listeners put in a little more work if they want to be on. They just got to send me an email, basically. But that's been really cool. And then I really do want to go to the Cubs convention. And a next level step would be to call them, next week, the Sheridan, and say, hey, do you have a room that we could go hang out from like 4:30 to 5:30? I'd love to do some kind of meetup before the dominoes fall there. So on that Friday, that first day. So that's my idea. I want to put it out there, and I'd love to invite other shows and that type of thing.
This has been another episode of Bricks Behind the Ivy, also brought to you by Wrigleyville Sports, the greatest sports memorabilia store in Wrigleyville. Make sure you check them out before and after games. You got the Winter Classic coming up. They've got all of that Winter Classic gear. They do custom jerseys. They can do them in just an amount of time for you to get it right before the game and walk in and impress all your friends with their name on the back of the shirt. Use our code IVY10 for 10% off at checkout. And thank you, Matt. Talk to you guys soon, and go Cubs.